Excerpts from the diary of Elizabeth Chilhurst, comprising entries from July 27th to August 8th. July 27th. Finally found you again, diary. I missed writing in you during the move. We're almost done moving the last of our stuff into Grandpa Chilhurst's creepy old place. Ugh, it's awful here. This place is full of all of his creepy old collections and his creepy old books. Danny likes it, which makes sense because he's a little creep. But I don't. And I'm pretty sure Mom and Dad don't either. I heard Mom saying how she was amazed that Grandpa left Dad the house because of how they were always fighting. I didn't know that, but it does explain why we never saw him. There's a big picture of him hanging in one of the rooms, the one with all the stuffed owls. He looks mean. It's not all that bad. The furniture here is nice. Real wood. There's this nightstand next to my bed with all sorts of hand-carved symbols on the base, and it's really cool. And the bed's very comfy. There's a nice big window in my room that looks out at the woods. Danny wanted it also, but we flipped for it, and I got it. I think he's doing things to make me leave. He's such a little creep. Anyway, we're just moving in and getting used to the neighborhood. Not that there's much of one, because Grandpa seemed to like to live in the middle of nowhere. Still, it's quiet, much quieter than home, and that makes getting to sleep easier, so maybe we'll get used to it. The only thing I don't like is that Danny's right next door, and the doors don't lock, so little creep can sneak into my room whenever he likes. He's so going to be doing bad things with that. July 28th. I didn't sleep well last night. The nightstand is creepy. There's a face on it. Not really. Dad says it's just a pattern on the wood grain, but at night, in the dark, it looks like a face. A face with big, wide jaws and fangs, like it's gonna eat you. It's not nice. We moved some more of our stuff in today. We had to move a bunch of Grandpa's stuff out to do that, including this bunch of old sticks with things tied to them. Mom wanted us to move the stuffed owls out too, but no one wanted to touch them. P.S. Danny tried to put a mouse in my room. He's such a jerk. July 29th. Danny's sneaking in my room and whispering things when I'm not in it. I think he thinks that if he scares me, he'll get the room. But I'm not leaving, not for him, and not for the face on the nightstand. Mom and Dad have to go see the lawyer. There's some weird issue with Grandpa's will, and I don't really get it. But they'll be going to the city in a little while, which means Danny and me will be by ourselves for a few days. Fun. July 30th. Danny keeps doing stupid things to spook me. Like he tossed a stuffed owl into my room this morning. He thought I was sleeping, but I wasn't, so I saw him. And I think he put one of Grandpa's old books on my bed open like he'd been reading it. It was some weird junk about Indian curses and bad medicine. I didn't really get it. And he keeps doing the whispering thing, though he swears he isn't. I don't even get what he's saying. It sounds like, "What she many do," which makes no sense. But then it doesn't have to, it just has to be creepy. Especially the creepy high voice he uses. Ugh, creeps me out just thinking about it. The face on the nightstand looked extra scary last night. I'm thinking about asking Dad to move it when he and Mom get back from the city. I'd ask now, but we have a lot of other things to move, and it's very big and heavy. July 31st. Danny put a jar with a baby pig from Grandpa's study on the kitchen table last night to try to spook me when we had breakfast, but he wound up scaring Mom instead. She dropped the pancakes and broke the plate. Dad's very mad, says that I'm going to be in charge when they leave, and Danny's going to be grounded. Which would mean more if this place actually got television or something I could punish the little jerk with. I suppose I could tell him to stay in his room, but he wouldn't do it. He's such a jerk. He left another one of Grandpa's books on my bed with a bit highlighted. It was something about evil Indian witches who put evil spirits into things and into people, and even into themselves if they wanted to, and do all sorts of evil things with them. If Danny thinks he can scare me with this stuff, he's wrong. I tried not to look at the face last night by looking out the window, but the woods looked just as creepy as the face, and the moon was so bright I couldn't get to sleep. August 1st. Mom says I'm talking loudly in my sleep. That can't be right because I'm not sleeping. I bet it's Danny. He makes me so angry. Dad took me back to Grandpa's study. He wants to lock it up before he goes so that Danny doesn't get at it. And before he did, he thought he should check what shape it's in. It's a creepy room filled with lots of jars of baby pigs and other baby things and a wall of arrowheads and lots of pictures. There's one from an old newspaper of Grandpa holding one of his books in one hand and a human skull in the other. And under that, it said, Benjamin Chilhurst, America's Aleister Crowley. I asked Dad what that meant, and he said it was just nonsense. He said that his father was mean and hateful and liked to make people think that he could do things he couldn't. I could believe it. He looked awful and old in that picture, and it was taken when he was much younger, about Dad's age. There was also a picture of a man who looked like Grandpa with a bunch of Indians. I thought it might be him because he wrote all those books about Indians, but Dad said it was much too old, and that it was probably Grandpa's father, my great-grandfather. He said that great-grandpa Chilhurst was a lot like his son, that he made the family fortune by mining for gold and buying cheap land from Indians, then selling it to settlers and the government for lots of money. I asked him what happened to the money, and he said that Grandpa spent a lot of it, but there was a lot of it left, and that was one thing they were going to see the lawyer about. He said it was entrust, which I think means we'll get it, but not now. Mom and Dad are leaving tomorrow. They've left us a bunch of frozen pizzas and a number to call in case things get bad. I'm gonna be in charge, and I hope that I can keep Danny in line. And I hope that I can get to sleep tonight, and that the face doesn't do anything creepy. August 2nd. Danny put a snake in my room. As soon as Mom and Dad left, he put a snake in my room. He says he didn't, but I can hear the thing moving, and sometimes I can see it out of the corner of my eye just for a moment. I'm so mad at him. I told him to stay in his room all morning and only come out for dinner, but he's not listening to me. He's going into my room and doing the whispering thing when I'm not there. It's so infuriating. I really need to get to sleep. The face keeps glaring at me, and the moon shines right in my eyes. And I think I saw a guy walking out in the woods last night, a big glowing guy. I'm sleeping in the living room tonight. The couch isn't as nice as the bed, but there's no snake there and no face, and I won't have to look at the woods and the awful moon. I'm gonna get some sleep. August 3rd. I got to sleep last night. It was awful. I had a bad dream. Grandpa was standing over me, or it looked like Grandpa. He was dressed like one of the Indians in the picture and was holding a skull in one hand and one of those sticks in the other, and he was chanting and talking. He said something like, 200 years the to me, 200 years me to the, and then something about the government being sealed in his blood. And then there was this rattle and something started talking back to him in this weird high voice, and it talked about getting new flesh, and the walls around him started to move. And that was when I realized they weren't walls, they were a giant snake. And that's when I woke up, and it got worse. Danny had done something awful, really awful. He painted something from one of Grandpa's books on the wall while I was sleeping in this bright yellow paint. The victim must know they're being cursed, even if they do not consciously accept it. He's trying to make me think he's cursing me, the little creep. He says he isn't. Like I'd believe that. I tried to call Mom and Dad, but he'd hid the number so I couldn't. But when I find it again, he'll be in so much trouble. They'll ground him permanently. First I had him clean up the wall. Then it turned out the stuff just came right off. Then I sent him to his room for being such a brat. And I stood outside it for the rest of the day. And then I didn't let him out for dinner, and I ate the pizza outside his door, and I didn't share a bit of it. I'm gonna sleep in Mom and Dad's room tonight. The living room's bad. August 4th. Mom and Dad's room didn't work. There's a big window, and the moon shined right through it, into my eyes. And I saw the glowing man walking around the woods, and he seemed to look at me. And I kept flashing back to what might have been a memory of seeing Grandpa when he was alive. And he came right up to me, and he put his hand on my head and looked at my eyes and said, Good stock, this one. I'll have to use her. Dad and Mom just looked scared, and I cried and tried to get away, but he grabbed me, and he wouldn't let go. And I think the snake got into the room somehow, because I think I heard it, and maybe saw it just once. So I didn't get any sleep. And the next morning there was a big boom, and Danny started screaming. We both rushed downstairs, and it was Grandpa's study. The door had gotten open, which is impossible, and some of the jars of dead baby things had fallen off the table. And Danny started crying and saying he didn't do it, and I believed him. So we cleaned things up, and it was disgusting. And then we had breakfast, and we said sorry to each other. But when we were cleaning the study, I found a piece of paper, and most of it was nonsense, written in all these weird squiggles. But the top had the words, "Addendum and amendment to my bond after its first century." And at the bottom was Grandpa's signature and the date, with 2 more weird bunch of squiggles after it. Grandpa signed it in 1967, the year that Dad was born. I didn't tell Danny about it because holding it made me feel kind of sick, and looking at the squiggles made my head hurt. I don't know what it says, but I know it says something, and that something is something terrible. I'm really scared. Grandpa did something horrible, and I don't know what. I'm sleeping in my room tonight. Going to other places doesn't work. August 5th. I don't know if it's actually August 5th, but I filled up a whole page for August 4th, even if I write very small, and I can't get to sleep. It's not so bad tonight. I don't see the glowing man, and the snake is gone, but the face in the nightstand's looking right at me. The text breaks into an illegible scrawl. August 6th. The entire page is a legible scrawl. August 7th. The entire page is a legible scrawl. August 8th.
How'd you go in there, didn't I, Danny boy? This whole thing started when you began that frankly pathetic effort to scare me. I decided to give it right back to you. Hence my various little macabre tales and these amusing little diary entries. And yes, Danny, I know you read this. In the future, I recommend you do not. Gods, you are such a sneaking little worm at times. Naturally, once Mom and Dad went to deal with those various codicils in the will, I saw my opportunity, and I took it. The bit in Grandfather's study didn't quite go as I planned. I just wanted the door to slam to give you a fright. But I can take comfort in the fact that nothing genuinely valuable was damaged. Whatever his good points were, Benjamin was a horrid pack rat. He collected those fetuses simply out of a perverse delight in collecting them, and never could think of anything to do with them besides using them to make his room look vaguely occultic. Ah, well. De gustibus non est disputandum. I hope this has taught you a lesson about trying to pull one on me. I'm your big sister, and I have tricks that you wouldn't believe, Danny boy. And no, I'm not just saying that. And for God's sake, try to actually check on things instead of just believing what you read. I mean, look at my nightstand. Is there actually some horrible fanged face with a tremendous maw on it? Of course not. At best, there's an image that looks sort of like a young girl, wailing in terror. If you look at it precisely, the right angle, of course. Pleasant dreams, Danny boy.